I've actually done meal planning on a calendar, and I've actually jotted down, a week or even 2 weeks worth of meals. And it doesn't matter if those meals repeat again Monday through to Sunday, and all you're actually doing maybe is swapping out what it might be on a Sunday. But I think meal planning is always a really valuable thing.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Sweet Liberation. And really excited about today's show because we're going to talk about one of my passions and your passion, Luke, and that is children and getting them to eat well and how we manage that as parents and grandparents now. So I know that this is something you get on a little bit of a soapbox about. So why don't you kick us off about this particular subject, Luke, that you're so passionate about?
Yes, certainly. Well, yes. I mean, the thing that as a grandparent and a father of three, it's always been very, really close to my heart in terms of what I feed my children, what they eat, and also that as you know, and I've said before on the podcast about spending a lot of time in the dentist chair when I was a child, going back to my childhood, and that was generally caused by really sweets and having open access to the sugar bowl. And I don't know how much sugar I would consume for breakfast on my cereal, but it's frightening to think. So yeah, my real passion is to with my own story is to help and make a difference in children's lives and see what we can do to help educate and and make some small changes and tweaks initially for people so that they can start leading a healthier life.
Yeah.
How's it for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's kind of it's a personal journey because of my children. I'm also a mum of three and a grandma, and yeah, so really kind of seeing how nutrition has sort of played out because also I come from a healthcare background, so you kind of got these two sort of worlds meeting in my mind and thinking, well, I know what we should be eating as a family. What are we doing? And actually, I've got to say that although in the 90s when my first child was small, it wasn't really considered to be a big thing to give too much sugar because at that point the big baddie was fat. So drinking fizzy drinks and things like that, although we kind of knew was bad for our teeth, it wasn't like the big baddie that it is now. We were really trying to avoid fat, and eating a high carbohydrate diet at that point was what they considered to be kind of optimal. And so I remember not being that much so vigilant with my first child, and she actually had a couple of extractions from her baby teeth that she had problems with. She actually prolonged breastfed, so she was the one that had some problems, and it was really heartbreaking to take her in for these extractions because these little baby teeth wouldn't come out on their own; they needed to be pulled. And then actually, as consequently, she actually has perfect teeth now. She's got a really, really good teeth. I think in her whole adult life, she had one little filling after she had her baby. And other than that, her teeth, she's never had any fillings. So I was really blessed with her in the end having these extractions, but it was felt so guilty and so bad at the time. And then my second child, he again, I think we were probably not as vigilant with the sugar. Although at home we actually had a really healthy diet. Like I didn't used to buy sweets weren't at home. What we used to do is only have sweets when we went out. So the treats would be not having them in the house, but buying them like when we're out and about or having dinner out or something like that. What about you?
Yeah, yes. So, well, from my side, yes, my children have actually on the whole got pretty good teeth, but I think that's because when they were growing up, similar to you in that being quite vigilant with the brushing and things that has always been quite important, and not constantly doing what the children are doing these days, which is that sipping. You mentioned it the other day that the children are sipping, 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 and your mouth actually needs that time, doesn't it, to recover?
Mm.
And I think that's some of the things that people, and anyone listening to our podcast, be aware that some of the fashions might not be as good, as having a bit of a break, or and then as a treat, sometimes we were told a few years ago, and it's probably right, and I'd like your input on this, but have chocolate rather than a boiled sweet, because when you're chewing sweets like I did as a child,
Oh,
those bits of sugar get stuck in
oh
between
yeah.
the back teeth, and then that sugar is just sitting in your mouth the whole time, just festering away. Whereas actually a bar of chocolate washes away quite quickly. And then having some milk afterwards, and having some milk instead of perhaps a fizzy drink, is something that I've always said to my children and encouraged. So
Oh,
those
that's
little
really good.
changes, yeah,
Yeah, I
those
mean,
changes, I think,
for
yeah.
sure. My first one, I think she was the one with the problems with the teeth, and she's got perfect teeth now.
Mm,
So although I don't really know what the science says about this, but all three of my children did prolong breastfeed, and they were feeding at night. So I don't know if that, what the science says about that. But anecdotally, I have seen some mums that have reported that, the prolonged breastfeeding, sometimes the little baby teeth can get a little bit marked and things like that. So it can be just a bit harder to get that tooth brushing as well, because then they're just sipping all night long. So I had
yeah.
that with my first, and then the other two, really, all of them have very good teeth now. My son, who's my middle child, I don't think he's got any fillings, although he again had to have a couple of the little ones just taken out. I think they were due to come out anyway, but we'd gone into
Mm,
the dental hospital in London, where we used to have our checkups anyway, because I worked there, so it was quite handy to go and have our checkups. And I think they pulled out little baby teeth, and they said, well, the big ones will come through, and that was fine. And he's got no fillings, so he's done really well. And then my youngest, I'm absolutely like a ninja with the brushing as well. But all three of them being careful with the brushing, but even more about making sure we're using really high quality toothpaste, and just getting that that brushing really vigilant. And she eats probably the least amount of sugar of my three. What about your kids and the amount of sugar they were eating?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, yes, my youngest, the same, in fact with yours. It doesn't really isn't that bothered about too much sugar consumption, and is aware of it. And so yes, I don't know if that's because of the generational thing. I don't know, but my two older children, they did have more in the way of sweets and things, but I think as well, as things have gone on over time, we've actually become better at things like brushing, and and I think I'm guilty back in the in the day of sort of yeah, done, mum, and it was a bit like that, and it was, yeah. So I think that's part of the problem. Whereas I think as we've become as the generations have gone on, we've become a bit more vigilant, and I think, yes, same as with your youngest. Mine is a bit of a ninja himself with his own. And in fact, funnily enough, I saw something just the other day, and it was that apparently the brushing regime is 3 times a day that he's been doing. So I don't know. I think that's interesting. I
Yeah.
think that the regime that we've recently come across is a very, very interesting regime, and that's something I'd always like to share with people.
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah. I've been very much trying to be more careful with my teeth, because I'd like to keep them. I don't want to have any extractions. I want to be able to enjoy my food right until my very elderly years, if I get there, and not have to worry about soft foods and things like that. I want to be able to enjoy eating. And so, obviously, I think we talked about supplementation before, and one of the things
Mm,
I'm learning about is the importance of vitamin D, even for teeth, for bones, for all of that kind of, making the bone and the connective tissue as well around the mouth. All of that is really important, and vitamin D plays such an important role in that. So I sort of pat myself on the back, because I'm really on it with the vitamin D every day. And yeah, so kind of ensuring the oral health is good. I've been, yeah, both of us have kind of been investigating. I'm looking a little bit at a few other sort of more naturopathic methods, as well as the cleaning regime. So I've been looking at
mm.
oil pulling, which is another thing I'm thinking, well, it can't hurt. So let me give it a go as well, just to kind of, keep that mouth and oral health really pristine. So that's
Mm.
something I'm definitely keen to look after my teeth. So
Mm.
in terms of the amount of sugar you have seen kids consuming, I mean, what is it that really annoys you when you're out and about? 'Cause I know you've had a few
Yeah.
moments of being triggered by it all.
Yeah, I think, well, the thing that, for me, and the reason, for me, my passion around what we're doing is really improving health for children, because and trying to get the educational side of it across, because the children aren't always able to make the decisions about what they're eating. But I do believe that children are, in that cycle sometimes of, needing sugar, and needing a sugar hit. And I sometimes see children, even in the supermarket, and they've got 2 liters of, a soft drink, and they're drinking it, the big 2 liter bottles. And it's something that is, it's, I suppose it's just looking at what some people and some families are buying, and thinking, wow, there's an awful lot of, if you like, junk there that that child is then going to be consuming a proper meal in the evening. What's probably then happening is they're probably not then eating the proper meal, and things like the, the protein and the things and the vegetables, because they've filled themselves up on the snacks, because they've got home from the supermarket, and there's been a gap between, when mum's actually cooked the dinner, and the open access. And I know, people that have got a drawer, and that drawer has then got snacks in it. Well, this for me, this concept of having snacks is a little bit odd, and I'd like people to try and break away from that if they can.
Yeah,
And if
there is a
somebody is
snack
hungry,
culture, isn't there? I think
yeah.
this kind of constant grazing, and I know that,
Mm.
as I'm sort of looking deeper into oral health, this is on this
Mm.
biohacking journey that we're on.
Yeah.
So I think, looking at why, even if you are brushing your teeth twice a day and all of that kind of stuff, all the good things that people do, and still having, cavities and stuff like that. And it can be that you're, one of the things we found out is that about sipping even sips of water, because you're changing the pH of your mouth, and you're making your mouth acidic, and it's not having the
Yes.
time to recover to neutralize that acid, so that, because
Mm.
it's the acid that also chips, sort of erodes the enamel. So
Yes.
that was an interesting thing, that even sipping water all day long. So saying, have your water, drink it, but don't just sip, sip, sip. And then you've got children with these little sippy
Right.
cups, sipping squash,
Mm.
sipping
Yes.
these kind of very acidic drinks. And then it's sort of there collecting
Mm.
in their mouth for hours all day long. and
Mm.
and then you think, well, it's that lack of knowledge and insight and education, and that's one of the things I'm really, really kind of passionate about as a healthcare professional. That I really think sometimes we assume that people know things and they're just doing it, but actually sometimes people haven't had anyone sit down with them and kind of go through any, not just education of telling people, from a kind of top level down, but sitting down and sort of seeing what their lifestyle is like, and kind of coming up with solutions that are going to be helpful to their family and their children, and how you can make the day look for a family, for a busy mum, for instance. So yeah, that's kind
Mm.
of one of my passions, is education.
Right. Yes. Absolutely. And what do you think families should do then, snack wise? Do you think, maybe have an apple or something, or even, we talked about, sometimes people say they're hungry and they're actually just thirsty.
Yeah, so I think if I look back to a time when people weren't as overweight as they are now, so within our lifetime,
Mm.
if I put the time machine back to 30 or even 40 years ago, and remembering what life was like in those days, we had meals at set times, and we didn't really eat in between. It was rare that you might have. So I can remember, let's just, in the time machine, even though the food wasn't optimal all the time, but
Mm.
we were not having the obesity that we have now in this country, right? So I remember having something in the morning, and I was always very resistant to having breakfast. I never liked breakfast as a child, and now I realize it's actually my body doesn't need breakfast, so that's okay. But I would have something like a bowl of breakfast, almost force fed to me because I didn't want to eat, and then we'd have nothing until lunchtime, would we?
No.
Occasionally, you might have a glass of milk and a cookie or something, but really, there wasn't a snack, was there? Not
There weren't
really.
any, no, and we would often go out and we might be playing for 4 hours and not have actually forgotten to eat.
Had forgotten
And
to
so,
eat. So we would be, told come back for this time. So we'd go out, we'd
yeah,
be playing outdoors, and then we'd
mm,
be told come back at such a time for lunch. I often would forget lunch. I often
mm,
didn't need lunch, and I only really got hungry in the late afternoon. And then
mm,
occasionally a parent might, because we were out and about all day long, a kind parent would open the back door and, hand her some little plastic cups with some squash in them and a little custard cream biscuit or something like that, maybe by 3 or 4 o'clock. And then we
mm.
would probably eat around 6, wouldn't we? We would eat at 6 or 7,
Yes, that's right.
and
Everybody,
that
yeah,
was it. So
people.
we'd eat these very fixed times,
Mm.
right?
It was, yeah, it was. And I think the other thing I think there was a benefit in those days is for me, certainly the school meals were terrible. And I don't think as children, we generally ate them. So there was another calorie reduction in terms of that because, the mashed potato and things I think was powdered. So it was, so it was a bit of a nightmare. And I think today we've got what, people like to refer to as a perfect storm, haven't we? Because we've got all of the things like Netflix on TV or the computer games, and then this leads to a sedentary lifestyle and lots of snacking. So,
Oh,
what's your
constant
thoughts in
snacking.
terms of that?
Yeah,
Mm,
yes,
yeah,
we just didn't do it. So then I do remember that I remember boys of my age group would have a supper before they would sleep. So sometimes they'd have some bowls of cereal or something for supper. So I don't know if boys need
yeah.
more calories when they're growing up, so than girls. And I used to remember my friends talking about, supper. And I thought I never had supper in my life. Did you have supper when you were a kid?
What I did, I remember in the days when I think some of my favourite films used to come on programs used to come on at about 9 p.m. And I was allowed at 9 p.m. to have what I called supper because I was watching things like The Professionals or Starsky and Hutch or maybe
How old
even
were you?
even I don't know, probably about 10 or 11, and I would
Oh,
have
okay.
five. So for my supper, then I would be having five shredded wheat in a mixing bowl and coated with sugar. So my evening supper at 9 p.m. would have been five shredded wheat.
Oh, wow. The amount of milk that was consumed in your house must have been a lot.
Oh, yeah, no, I would have a pint on that cereal. Yeah, so I'd have a pint of milk, maybe more, on in my mixing bowl. It was
Oh
a
my
yeah food
goodness.
mixing bowl. So yeah, and it was quite hard to get five shredded wheat next to each other because of course you're talking about
That's a
a foot
lot.
long
Yeah.
supper. So yeah,
No, I didn't have supper. I was very picky and I didn't eat very much when I was a child. And I remember my auntie when I was very little sitting at the table, like almost, sitting there, like bribing me to have food because I just was not a big eater at all as I was growing up. I got more into food as I got a bit older and maybe in my late teens, but I wasn't really much of an eater when I was little at all. And yeah, so we didn't have this snack culture. And the food you're describing really bad school food, and now people are describing the foods that are out and about that are causing a lot of these problems. They call them hyper-palatable. So uh, i.e.
mm,
very delicious. When we eat them
yeah.
we want to eat more, but
Mm.
we didn't have those in those days, did we?
No, we didn't have anything that was palatable really at all. And actually, the interesting thing I think in those days is how awful the quality of food was. And I do remember that I was involved in a business back then, and we were buying trays of beef burgers. Now, I don't know how much beef was actually
Yeah, I
in
was
those beef
wondering about
burgers,
that.
but
Was there
yeah,
what animal was in there? Not sure.
Uh,
Generic
no,
animal.
it was interesting, and I don't know what the percentage of meat was, but in fact, actually, no, there is a brand of sausage actually that I've seen, and I've turned over the pack, and it says 45% meat, but it's referred to it as meat, so there is a 45% animal derivative in there, and yeah, the quality of that. I mean, you really would only give it to your dog.
Oh
Um,
my
it,
God.
it does say that it is fit for human consumption, but only just. But that was my recollection of what we were eating back then. Things aren't so bad now. Yes, we do have organic food. Yes, we do have, some of the farm assured foods, and the eggs are stamped these days, as we've discussed many times. And I think that yes, the quality of food, we've just said, it's got to be better quality. But I think it comes down to some of the people that I've looked up to as mentors have said, have smaller portions. That was the key. So you don't need huge portions on your plate. And in fact, there was a brilliant documentary, and there was a guy that was over 100 running the London Marathon, and that was exactly his words. He said the key to him being able to run the London Marathon and be 100 years old, he was an Indian man, and he said it was just portion sizes.
Small.
Cut the portion sizes. Quick cheat here for everybody: get smaller plates. Don't have dinner plates that
Yes,
are
the plates have got
14 inches wide. Yeah.
they're ginormous. Everything is like
Mm.
supersized. It's really
Yeah,
unbelievable, isn't it? Big plates.
that's right.
They say that the size, when they look at the kind of standard croissant that we would be able to, was very exotic in the 1980s. Buying a croissant was like, whoa, very exotic, very foreign. And a little croissant, very small like this. And you go to the shop now, and a croissant is like three times the size. You just think, no, it's not
Yeah.
the same amount of calories in there at all. But apart from that, I think yes, so we've got the portion sizes and all of that, but the snack culture and having children, I
Mm.
think if we go back to what we were discussing at the beginning, is really just kind of, for me, is not focusing on being judgmental with parents, but focusing on helping parents find real solutions to
Mm.
doing what they need to do. Now I am one of these people that has to find a hack for everything. I just have to. I don't know about you, but I haven't got to first of all, I like to spend time doing what I want to do, so I don't want to spend too long in the kitchen or too long doing things that I mean, I like cooking, but don't get me wrong, I don't want to spend 8 hours in the kitchen. I have been in families where there has been a woman for 8 hours in the kitchen. That is not
Wow.
me, and that is never going to be me ever. So I'm not going to do that. So whatever delicious dishes I have learned to make are fast. And
Mm.
you will attest, I'm fast in the
Mm.
kitchen. I don't mess around,
Really
right?
fast.
I,
And I've seen you, as cooking and things, and it's incredibly fast. I mean, I used to watch some of the top chefs on TV, like Gordon Ramsay, and this, you're pretty much at his level when you chopping an onion. It's like and the speed at which, because some of the meals that the top chefs talk about, they say, oh yeah, this is only 10 minutes to prep it and it's all done. They can do it in 10 minutes, but certainly I'm
well,
not able to.
I
But
mean,
you can do it in ten
I
minutes.
can do it in 10 minutes because sometimes I'm so lazy I don't even get a chopping board out. I just chop the things on my hand like this into the pot. I mean, I am fast, and the reason I'm fast is I've had to, I've had a career where I've done shift work. Occasionally I've done night shifts. I've been, it's hard being working as in the NHS and as a healthcare professional. It's tough. You're on your feet a lot and you're exhausted. And I suffer from an autoimmune disease, so you don't want, be fussing in the kitchen. So I developed a whole bunch of different dishes that were nutritious, healthy for my growing family,
Mm.
that were, very healthy dishes, but fast. And first of
Yeah.
all, they have to be tasty and
Mm.
fast. Two things that are like
Well, there was.
prerequisites.
I remember watching you one day, and I think the prep time into a pot was about 4 minutes. You were making Moana chicken, and
Oh,
it was literally, there was a day they were up against it on time, had to be done. Everything in, bomb, 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 and then lid on, out the door, to come back to it half an hour, 45 minutes later, or whatever. Meal done. And I think, no, I wasn't actually timing you, but it was sub 5 minutes.
yeah.
So
I've got just
that's
Yeah, I've got a
yeah,
magic pot. I've got a magic
yeah.
pot, and for people that are part of our community platform, we have an app, and so yeah, I'm going to be sharing some of that. Actually, starting a new program with just a select few people on Monday, and I'm going to be
Mm.
sharing some of those recipes because mums are always asking me like, "How did you make that?" Because I have a lot of play dates with my little one and things like that. And the kids will just wolf down pretty much everything I put in front of them because I've developed all of these very child friendly dishes that are healthy
Yeah.
dishes, but I understand like the flavors that kids like, and I always manage to get them to eat everything on their plate pretty much. So I'm lucky like that, but that's because I've
Mm.
developed these dishes. So I think
Mm.
people make life a lot harder than it needs to be. For me, it's all about finding hacks. Now we call it hacks. In the old days, it's just like ways to get things done quickly. I just need to get things done quickly and to get the best result as quickly as possible so I can go and spend my time doing other things, working, enjoying myself with friends, etc. I don't want to be stuck in the kitchen. And I think people are very intimidated, parents, when we're talking about parents of children that are struggling to feed their children healthy, nutritious food
Mhm.
on a budget, which are basically all of the above. I was always been on a budget, so healthy, nutritious food on a budget is basically my life hack. I've had to be doing that all of my parenting journey. They just don't know how. They're like, "How do you do it?" And I bring them in my kitchen. I go, "Well, this is how." I go, "Well, I could do that." It's like, "Yeah, you definitely could do that." "Oh my gosh, my kids loved that food. How did you make it?" And I'll show them. Like, literally took 5 minutes. "Oh my god, that's so good." So you think a
Mm.
lot of this thing is the overwhelm in people's minds. They think is going to take a long time. In actual
Yes.
fact, it doesn't.
Yeah. No, no, quite. And the other thing I was just going to quickly say about that is that yes, your meals are those child-friendly meals. The adults love them, everybody loves them, and then the children come and visit. They all love them. And sometimes you might say, "Oh, I've prepared Moana chicken," and the children say, "Oh, I don't eat curry." But then actually, when they try it, then they then actually say, "Wow, that's so incredible." And actually, it's one of the things that I was also going to say is that I was just quickly looking up actually who said life is too short to stuff a mushroom. It was Dame Shirley Conran, and I was thinking life is too short to stuff a mushroom. But I also wanted just to quickly add about the food. Yes, everybody, going back to the portion sizes, one of the things that we used to be told in the 70s, and it's a good thing not to do, is encourage children to completely clear their plates because, and they have said that for children, actually, not that affirmation that is, you're a good child because you've cleared your plate, because that then for me, you're then as you get into older,
Mhm.
habits, and you see food on plates and you end up, I don't know what you think, Nabila, what you do is, but I do actually see food on a plate and have to clear the plate for even for somebody else.
Do you? I don't always. No, I don't. And I was always a very, very picky eater as a child. As in, I liked my mum's food. And by the way, I have to say, my mum will be listening to this, and I have to say that we did not eat rubbish in my house. I must say, my mum was on it. She was one of the
Mm.
first people I know that used to go to health food shops in the days before. There'd be one health food shop, like dusty health food shop somewhere in a village or something, and my mum would be the only customer there because no one used them in those days. So my mum was always about very high quality food. So we never ever ate cheap meat or
Mm.
highly processed things ever at home. She made everything from scratch. And so I think that put me in a good foundation. But she takes a lot longer in the kitchen than me. And I was like, I can't be dealing with all of that time in the kitchen. Let me do good food that my mum cooks, but faster. So I developed all the good food, but faster.
And I was going to also say that anybody that subscribes or sends a message to us, maybe you could share some of these fantastic
I
recipes
definitely will. So
that are the
yeah,
super quick ones, the ones that the children love.
yeah.
And I mean, maybe we could even help people with a link to that magic pot.
Most
Is that something?
definitely, most definitely. I'm going to be sharing all of that because we are
Yeah.
talking about having a basically a platform where I just cook because I love it. I love
Oh,
cooking
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
cooking and baking and sharing stuff, basic life hacks
Mm.
for parents. Everybody's busy, and I totally understand that. I mean, honestly, no one needs to talk to me about being busy. 20 years of healthcare work
Yeah.
is a long time, and I totally understand being on your feet and rushed off your feet and then having to pick kids up from school and the morning school run, all of that nightmare that can be parenting. So the last thing you want is more stress in the kitchen. So yeah, I'm all about making things easy for parents and delicious for everybody because I love
Mm.
good food. There's nothing like sitting as a family to eat something delicious and just like, sharing the day, enjoying, laughing, and, actually the silence of everybody enjoying the food, that they'll just like barely look up and go, that is really good food. And then just keep going.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, fantastic. So I think for me, that the takeaway from this conversation is that I don't want parents to feel judged. I do understand that everybody's highly stressed, we are in a crisis where we need more hands on, we need more boots on the ground for people to
Mhm.
be helped in this journey towards being much healthier. And when you start seeing the results, every time we do this podcast, we talk about, you know, the incremental wins, those results. The more that you start to see change happening, the easier it becomes for more change to happen. And then you start looking, and what else can I do, what else can I do? And if we just start with the simple things of like having those 3 meals a day or 2 meals a day, really nutritious, and how wonderful it can be for us to kind of share that time as a family, or even taking healthy food into the office, giving your body a break by intermittent fasting. How does that look for a busy person, for a busy mum of three, you know, who is running and rushing around to work, having to pack lunches and get the kids ready in the morning? How do we do all of that? Well, it is possible. And so I'll be sharing all of that. And we are going to be certainly doing some cooking and in the kitchen again. So that I can share some of
Excellent.
that with mums that are, you know, in an earlier stage of their journey of mumming than I am. So hopefully I can kind of give a few tips.
Yeah, brilliant. And I'd like to echo that and say that yes, I mean one of the points about the podcast is to share those things that we have learned over, you know, the last sort of half a century, you know, in terms of tips and tricks. Share it, and yeah, as you say, new mums or people, even perhaps even single parents, and if they pick up any even a little tidbit of the things that we're doing and our shortcuts, and if that makes a difference to them, wins them a bit more time, then yeah, that is obviously, you know, the purpose of actually doing that.
A
That's awesome.
massive win. Absolutely,
Mm.
absolutely. So with that said, are there any lasting words that you want to sort of impart, any inspiration for parents, because we're kind of both seasoned parents and grandparents,
Well,
so for the dads maybe.
yeah, for the dads, I think you know, very important to the planning. I think is important, and I have always and it sounds really a little bit geeky, but I've actually done meal planning on a calendar, and I've actually jotted down, you know, a week or even 2 weeks worth of meals, and it doesn't matter if those meals repeat again Monday through to Sunday, and you know, and all you're actually doing maybe is swapping out what it might be on a Sunday. But I think meal planning is always a really valuable thing. So you're buying exactly what you need to buy, so there's no overbuying.
Mhm.
You're buying things and actually looking at the use by dates. So things like that you're actually doing going forward, that's really important. So my advice to single dads is, yeah, win yourself a bit of time through a little bit of careful planning, sketch it out, write a shopping list, put your meal plan on the calendar, and then know what you're doing going forward. Yeah, I would say that is the thing. And I think if people can like and subscribe for the
Yes,
channel. And let you,
definitely.
yeah, say, you know, say the that part in a second. But I would say that we could then, and anyone reaching out to us, we can then, you know, come up with something whereby we can actually mail out to people any of the tips and tricks, and maybe we can put
Yeah,
it
they
into a
should join the
document
Sweet
somewhere.
Revolution newsletter, because every week we're
Yeah,
sending out, you know, recipes, tips, and you know, we have features every single week. So if you haven't
mm,
already subscribed, subscribe to the Sweet Revolution newsletter. Yes,
yeah,
and make sure that you like and subscribe this. To our channel. And I know a lot of people that watch this are not subscribed yet. So if you haven't subscribed yet, you need to subscribe. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and like and share our content, so that we can bring you even more content like
mm,
this, and to have some amazing guests on the show. So with that said, I would like to close just by saying to people that being healthy might sound like an overwhelming task, but it's a small step that you can take. And we are going to be here on this journey with you, sharing our experiences, but also being part of your, you know, of your journey of wellness, and really to see and hear your success stories. So make sure you share with us, tell us your success stories, your wins, and so that we can celebrate you and be part of your journey towards a healthier, happier life. So with that said, we'll love you and leave you, and we will see you on the next episode of the Sweet Liberation. Bye for now.
bye for now.